So the judge has officially granted Daybreak's motion for a preliminary injunction against the hero's journey. The order runs about 30 pages, and it says the server must shut down once Daybreak posts a $1 million bond.
$1 million.
Sounds like a lot, right? Well, here's why. The order also records that THJ was generating about $100,000 per month in revenue. While that didn't decide the case, copyright infringement and DMCA circumvention did. It did, however, erase any claim that it was a non-profit fan project. THJ was operating commercially, and the bond was set with that scale in mind. So the injunction bars the two co-founders personally from running the hero's journey, operating the hero's journey EMU website, hosting THJ's code repositories, public or private, and running any emulator software that connects players to EverQuest and using the EverQuest name. The judge's reasoning rested on the standard four-part test for injunction. So number one, the likelihood of success. Daybreak is likely to win on both copyright and DMCA claims. THJ required players to alter their EverQuest client to bypass Daybreak's login servers and redirect connections to THJ. Now, the court treated that as both infringement and circumvention. And a lot of you people watching this, if you watch any of my other videos, a lot of this is going to sound like the stuff we already talked about, but today we have the official injunction order. So number two, irreparable harm. Evidence showed players leaving EverQuest for THJ with six-figure monthly revenue. This wasn't just lost goodwill, it was market share bleeding into a commercial competitor. Now, a lot of people say that people didn't leave the official servers to play the hero's journey. Like a lot of people like me, I shut down some of my subscriptions. I still have an active subscription to Daybreak while I was playing on the hero's journey, and there's a lot of people like that. I do think that there are players that spent more time away from the EverQuest official servers and played on the hero's journey. Now, we do know that if you watch my recent population video, that since the lawsuit, almost nobody from the hero's journey that stopped playing has gone back to the live servers. The live servers are in pretty poor state right now. But number three, the balance of equities. Protecting IP outweighed THJ's interest in continuing, and the court framed the harm to Daybreak as a loss of control of its own product versus defendants losing a revenue stream.
Oh, I like money.
And as we all know that played on THJ, that set a new standard, a new expectation for EverQuest. And I think that's a lot of the reason why people aren't going to go back to regular EverQuest, where if the hero's journey maybe didn't exist, you'd still have people not going back and playing, but I think you would have people that have that itch that would still play on the live servers. But now after experiencing something as great as the hero's journey, it's going to be really hard for people to go back to regular EverQuest. Number four of why the court ruled this way, public interest. The court concluded that enforcing intellectual property rights is in the public interest. And we all know that's the case. This has been heavily talked about. Nobody is going to invest the millions and millions of dollars to create a game if someone can take that game and modify it and make money off it. It's just not going to happen. So a lot of people are saying, intellectual property rights are some type of scam or they shouldn't exist, but we would really not have almost any games. If somebody could spend millions of dollars completing the game and someone could just take it and roll with it, like we'd have Super Mario Brothers and it's 78,000 renditions. Like they could not make a franchise out of it. They could not maintain the game. They could not be a successful, profitable company, which is what is expected when you make a game and have employees to pay.
Oh, I like money.
So wherever you stand on intellectual property rights, it is a good thing in the general sense. It allows us to have a lot of the stuff that we do have. Otherwise, nobody would put forth the effort or the money to make some of these things. The next thing we'll talk about is a lot of people are saying, what about P99 and what about Quarm? Here's the key. The judge's order never mentions either of them. The injunction was granted purely on the evidence in this case, copyright infringement and DMCA circumvention. So whether THJ was making $5,000 or $100,000 a month, the ruling would have likely been the same. P99's 2015 agreement with Daybreak and Quarm's 2025 mid-lawsuit deal had no bearing on this injunction ruling. That said, they do matter in the broader conversation. They show that Daybreak will tolerate emulators under strict conditions. P99 had to remain strictly non-commercial, and Quarm accepted a hard player cap of 1,200 and rolled back a lot of its customizations. THJ had neither. Well, these examples weren't part of the injunction. They could come into play later. Remember, the case is still ongoing unless they come to some type of settlement outside of court. The injunction only requires THJ to shut down and stop operating once Daybreak posts that bond. So the P99 and Quarm could come into play during the case, settlement talks, community debates, or how Daybreak sets precedent moving forward. So those two things, while it did not have any impact on the injunction ruling, could play a part later on. Then we'll go into personal liability and DMCA math. So very interesting in this, and this was also mentioned, I think, in one of my other videos, but the court order also makes the co-founders of THJ personally liable. So the LLC structure did not protect them. The court applied the guiding spirit principle, which is if you actively direct infringement, you are personally on the hook. Now, this is crucial because the DMCA, as we talked about in one of my other videos, has statutory damages, and it is $200 minimum per act of circumvention and up to $2,500 per act. So what this could mean, now that they're personally liable, suppose THJ had 5,000 players that logged on throughout the day. Each logon requires alternate EQ client. That's 5,000 circumventions per day at only $200 each, which is the minimum that the judge can set. He cannot go any lower than that. That's $1 million per day in potential damages that these two co-founders could be personally liable for now. So over a 30-day month, that's $30 million in exposure. So while $100,000 a month in revenue might sound impressive,
Oh, I like money.
on the surface, in court, it looks tiny compared to the liability meter running in the background. So as far as the community's concerned, I did source up some comments. These come from Reddit, Discord, and some YouTube comments. And it really shows how divided the community is. There's criticism of Daybreak. So one comment is, Daybreak just killed the best version of EverQuest. That came from Reddit. They should have worked with THJ instead of suing. That came from a YouTube comment. Fans have kept this game alive for decades, and this is how Daybreak thanks them. This was from a Discord user, and they only care about TLB subs. Innovation gets crushed. This came from Reddit. And THJ wasn't competition, it was evolution. This was a comment made on a massively OP article. And then criticism of THJ. 100K a month? That's not donations, that's business. This came from Reddit. They knew the risks. P99 survived by following the rules. Quarm cut a deal. THJ got greedy. This came off the EQMU forums. You can't cry fan project while you're pulling more than indie studios. This was from a Reddit user. And I feel bad for players, but the law is the law. That's a YouTube comment. And it was never going to last once the money got that high. This came from a Discord user. I've also compiled, the same amount of neutral and different takes just for comparison. One user said, never touch THJ, but 100K a month? Of course it got shut down. That came from Reddit. Doesn't affect me, I just play live EQ. That is a YouTube comment. Cool idea, too successful. If they stayed small, maybe Daybreak ignores it. That was from a Discord user, and I only play TLPs. This was never on my radar. This came from Reddit. So aftermath and reflection. The injunction happened, make this very clear, because of copyright infringement and DMCA circumvention. As I said above, and you can read in the court order, the court finds it likely that Daybreak will succeed on those two claims. So the 100K a month didn't decide the case, but it showed THJ was commercial and helped set the bond.
Oh, I like money.
Now that we know officially that it's in the court order, it's mentioned, you can see it right here, that they were making 100K a month in revenue, minus server costs, whoever they paid, blah, blah, blah. How do you guys feel about that amount of money? Because I know a lot of comments that I got early on where people saying like, oh, good for them, donations are covering server costs, donations aren't mandatory, they're not making that much money. Some of you said they should be allowed to make as much money as they want. How do you feel now that there is that $100,000 value per month that is now out there in the open? Like, leave a comment below and let me know if that changes anything for you. If a comment on that. The story doesn't end here. For many players, the hero's journey was more than an emulator. It really was. It was the best MMO experience they've ever had. Now, I personally don't know if it's the best I've ever had, but I loved the hero's journey. That was me being like a multi-boxer, and later on, loving being able to automate stuff with MQ. Like, the hero's journey basically allowed me to play like one character for the first time in a long time. Like, even when I played World of Warcraft, I was at least 2 to 5 boxing for most things. It's just how I do things now, especially in EverQuest. So that was like a breath of fresh air for me. I don't know if that makes it the best MMO experience I've ever had, but it's definitely up there. And it allowed the multi-class characters. There's new progression paths and the systems that solve problems players had complained about in EverQuest for decades. I have videos on like the amount of problems that EverQuest faces with these archaic systems. and to update them to 2025 standards where, the player base, you respect their time. No more camping Raster and Gup for 3 days straight, which I did one time. 72 hours it took me to get that Monk Epic from Raster. I had to set a 15-minute timer, I think it was, or maybe it was 19 minutes. And through the entire night, this timer go off, I'd kill the PH, back to sleep. I had to do that for 3 days straight. I don't know if I should be proud about that, but I did it because I was like that much into the game. So having like a solo viable version of EverQuest, I got rid of like gear bottlenecks and turned like this old game into something like new and fresh. And I think that's why people are calling it the best version of EverQuest. It just wasn't, nostalgia alone. It was like nostalgia paired with innovation. You had devs that would patch stuff continuously, improve stuff continuously, and they listen to stuff. The lesson for Daybreak is that players are hungry for more than just TLP reruns. THJ, if anything, proved that fans will support even financially. 100K a month.
Oh, I like money.
I mean, it's the top EverQuest server. So I don't know what 100K a month is for you guys. You guys could probably monetize it a lot better since this was donations, but 100K a month, that's how much financial support came across this player run server. It's a version of EverQuest that evolves instead of just like repeating. And Daybreak can treat this as just a win in court, or they can finally recognize it as market research delivered for free. Well, the legal system may have forced THJ offline. The ideas it tested out are in the wild now. So players know what's possible, and I think that's why it's really becoming impossible to go back to regular EverQuest. The question is whether Daybreak really gives something like this a try. I mean, I hope these guys don't suffer personally, financially, with the DMCA claims. I hope they can work something out. Maybe they can turn over all the code, and maybe they can help Daybreak put a THJ type server under its official subscription. Maybe there's something like that they can work off instead of getting hit with all these big fines if they end up losing the case. Instead of owing $30 million, maybe they can come work it off at Daybreak and get THJ in the official server lineup. So I kind of remain optimistic and hopeful, but for now it looks like THJ is done. So let's recap. So the judge has granted Daybreak's injunction. The server must shut down once the $1 million bond is posted. The ruling was based on copyright and DMCA, not revenue, but 100K a month showed THJ had to be commercial. And P9 and Quarm, well, very controversial and used many times throughout the case to talk and comments. They were not part of the ruling. 30 pages referenced 0 times in the 30 pages. They could be used later. We'll see. So the two people that co-founded the THJ server now face personal liability with DMCA damages that could balloon into the millions. The community is split. Some blame Daybreak, some blame THJ, others don't give a shit. And the legacy, well, THJ is gone. It did demonstrate a demand for a modernized EverQuest. So in closing, the court saw a copyright case and a DMCA violation, but the community saw the best version of EverQuest they'd ever played. And Daybreak, well, they have a choice now. Ignore the lesson or finally build the kind of game their players clearly want. Thanks for watching, and I appreciate all of you subscribers, all the people that comment, all the people that got mad, left me a nasty comment, unsubscribed from my channel. I think the biggest subscriber gain that I've had in my time was when I started making content for THJ. It's coming to an end now. Hope to find something else to keep you guys entertained, whether it's EverQuest or something else. But as always, I appreciate the back and forth. Once again, thanks. And if you're interested in more of my content, check out one of these 2 videos.